Welcome back. You're trying to make sense of what's happening in the Middle East. I get it. You want to get past the headlines, really understand the significance of key talks without, drowning in details.
And that's exactly what we aim for here, to give you that informed perspective, the really crucial takeaways, pulling from different sources so you know what actually matters.
So today we're zooming in on a pretty significant phone call happened this past week, reported on Friday, between Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, and the new Iranian president Masood Pazashkian.
Right. And it's important to remember the context here. This isn't just out of the blue. We've got ongoing regional tensions, sure, but also that big China-brokered deal last year, the reconciliation between Riyadh and Tehran. That set a stage.
Definitely. So our mission, if you will, for this deep dive is to kind of unpack this specific conversation. What was said? What were the stated intentions, at least publicly?
And what might it all signal for regional stability? Which is, let's face it, always the big question in the Middle East. We've looked at a few different news reports to try and piece it together.
Okay, let's dig in. The first part of the call apparently was about Eid al-Fitr greetings. Standard stuff, maybe.
Well, yes and no. According to the Truth International, it started there. But think of it less as just politeness and more like opening the door, a shared cultural moment before getting into the heavier topics. It sort of smooths the path.
Makes sense. And it seems they didn't waste much time getting to the substance. Both the Truth International and another source we looked at, let's call it pasted text, say the talk quickly shifted.
Yeah, shifted to regional developments, mutual interests, the real meat of the matter. So definitely not just a courtesy call, it's a chance to actually talk policy.
So what did Iran put on the table? President Pazashkian, according to the Truth International, really emphasized that Iran has never pursued war. That's a strong statement, given the history.
It is. And he specifically tackled the nuclear issue head on. Said Iran isn't aiming for non-peaceful uses, that peaceful application is like core to their defense strategy, trying to send a clear message there.
A message of reassurance, it sounds like. To the region, to the world, maybe?
Probably. And he paired that with saying Iran is ready for dialogue, ready to talk about easing tensions. But, and this is key, based on mutual interest and respect. So not a one-sided thing.
But he also added that classic caveat, right? While not seeking war, they are, quote, fully prepared to defend themselves. Said their defense capabilities are at their peak.
Right, that sort of speak softly but carry a big stick approach. Diplomacy backed by deterrence. It's a common posture.
But then there was this other part, potentially quite significant, the nuclear verification thing.
Yes, exactly. Pazashkian apparently suggested, again, this is the Truth International reporting, that Iran could put its nuclear activities back under a full verification mechanism, like they had before.
Wow, okay. That sounds like a concrete offer. A gesture of transparency, maybe, to calm international nerves?
Potentially. Offering that kind of access could really change the dynamic, couldn't it?
Yeah.
Build some trust, perhaps. It certainly addresses a major point of contention directly. We have seen these kinds of verification mechanisms before.
Yeah.
What made those successful, or maybe less successful, and what might need to be different this time for it to really, build trust? That's the million-dollar question, I suppose.
Absolutely. It always comes down to the details and the follow-through, doesn't it? So how did MBS react to all this?
Positively, it seems. The Truth International says the Crown Prince acknowledged that, Iran and Saudi Arabia, plus others in the region, have this huge potential to boost peace and stability in West Asia.
So acknowledging shared responsibility.
Exactly. And he didn't just acknowledge it. He reportedly said Saudi Arabia is ready to contribute to de-escalation to improving security. And he stressed cooperation between regional powers as the way to do it.
That sounds like wanting regional solutions for regional problems. Less reliance on outside powers, perhaps?
That could be part of the calculation. It certainly lines up with what Arab News reported, too. They focused on enhancing security and stability as a key theme in Saudi-Iran talks.
Although Arab News mentioned President Raisi in their report on this call, right? Not Pazashkian.
Yeah, there's that slight discrepancy in who was on the Iranian side, according to that source. But the Saudi message focus on regional security, stability seems consistent across the reports.
And thinking about MBS's focus on regional cooperation, it's interesting. Arab News also mentioned that earlier that same Sunday again, the timing differs slightly from the Friday report of the call. The Saudi chief of staff was actually in Tehran.
Right. Discussing defense ties with his Iranian counterpart. That shows action, doesn't it? Not just high-level phone calls, but military-to-military engagement, too. It adds another layer.
Definitely. It suggests this isn't just symbolic talk. And our pasted text source also mentioned discussions on mutual concerns might have included economic collaboration, so maybe broadening the scope beyond just security.
Could be. Security and economy often go hand in hand, right? Stability fosters trade, and trade can sometimes build bridges.
Now, there's another layer of context. Some sources brought up the Trump factor.
Yes. Pasted text, citing Salma TV, noted that these talks happened against the backdrop of some, let's say, strong rhetoric from former President Trump directed at Iran recently.
So the suggestion is maybe this Saudi-Iran dialogue is partly a regional response, like, hey, we can manage our own affairs, taking some initiative.
It certainly looks like an assertion of regional agency. Saudi Arabia and Iran talking directly, trying to manage de-escalation themselves. It shows they can communicate, especially building on that foundation from the China deal in 2023.
Right, that reconciliation. What do you think really pushed them towards that deal back then anyway?
Oh, likely a mix of things. Maybe a feeling that the old approach wasn't working, economic pressures, a desire to focus on domestic agendas like Saudi's Vision 2030, probably a complex calculation on both sides that continued confrontation was just too costly.
And that deal really did pave the way, didn't it? This call feels like a continuation, not a starting point.
Exactly. That thaw in Saudi-Iran relations, you see that phrase pop up in the reports. This phone call is another sign they both see value in keeping that channel open, despite, decades of rivalry.
And some analysts are apparently quite bullish on this. Pasted text mentions they think this could lead to broader regional initiatives, maybe even reshape the whole geopolitical landscape there.
That's a big claim. What makes them think that?
Well, the idea, I guess, is that if the two main regional rivals can maintain dialogue and maybe cooperate on some things, it creates space. Space to tackle other conflicts, maybe build regional security frameworks. It changes the underlying dynamic. If they're talking, maybe others feel they can too.
It could reduce proxy conflicts? Potentially. Allow for more focus on shared challenges like climate change or economic development. It could be transformative if the momentum holds.
And speaking of shared challenges, Arab News also noted President Pazashkian praised a Saudi initiative, a joint Arab-Islamic summit about the situation in Palestinian territories and Lebanon.
Right. Pazashkian wished it success. So that shows, even while they're having these important bilateral talks, they're also engaging in these wider multilateral efforts on other pressing crises.
It's all connected, isn't it? The bilateral track, the multilateral track, all happening at once in a really complex region.
Absolutely. It's like multiple chessboards being played simultaneously.
Okay, so let's try to boil this down. For someone listening, what are the absolute key takeaways from this specific phone call based on the reports we've seen?
1. A significant high-level diplomatic contact happened between Saudi and Iranian leadership. 2. The core focus was regional stability and de-escalation. 3. Iran floated this idea of reopening its nuclear program to full verification, a potentially major development if it goes anywhere.
And 4. Both sides expressed commitment to keep talking, keep working on lowering tensions.
Yeah, and that commitment, especially given the regional backdrop and maybe external pressures, suggests this thaw in relations might have some legs. It hints at a potential, however fragile, for more collaboration towards peace.
It really makes you think, though, even with this positive step, what are the biggest hurdles still standing in the way of lasting stability there? There are so many historical issues, proxy conflicts.
Exactly. That's the question to ponder, isn't it? What are those huge obstacles? Decades of mistrust, differing geopolitical goals, the role of external powers, internal politics, and maybe more importantly, what role can the regional powers themselves, like Saudi Arabia and Iran, realistically play in overcoming them? This call is interesting, a data point, but it's just one step on a very long and complicated road.